Jacksonville Jaguars fans, welcome into an emergency session of Duval Daily, presented by GenJag.com. I'm your host, Jordan DeLugo. Thank you so much for being here. Wednesday, March 5th, the Jaguars, according to ESPN's Adam Schefter, they are going to be releasing wide receiver Christian Kirk. Christian Kirk was signed by the Jaguars several years ago in free agency. Upon the signing, heavily scrutinized deal, right? Originally signed to a 4-year deal, $18 million per year for a slot receiver, whatever. Christian Kirk, during his time in Jacksonville, was a consummate professional, was somebody that Trevor Lawrence relied upon and had a great connection with. But money is money, right? Money is money. Cap space is cap space. And look, Christian Kirk, he struggled to stay healthy over the last couple of years. So we're going to talk about it, talk about Kirk moving on, his impact in Jacksonville, and what the Jaguars do from here at the receiver position. Really appreciate y'all tuning in. If you enjoyed the content, please like and subscribe. So again, Christian Kirk, according to ESPN, being released, or the Jaguars plan to release Christian Kirk, according to ESPN. Now, this could be a situation, too, where planning to release Christian Kirk could lead to maybe a team coming in with a late-round offer for Christian Kirk. I doubt that will happen. I don't think that a team is trading for him coming off of the injury that he's coming off of 2 season-ending injuries over the last 2 seasons. It's just a difficult situation, and his first year in Jacksonville was fantastic. He had a huge year for the Jaguars. There's no debating it. He helped get the Jaguars to the playoffs. And when healthy for the Jags over the last 3 years, Kirk has been an impressive and important slot receiver for this football team. Couldn't stay healthy the last 2 years, unfortunately. So he's 28 years old. Still should have some good years ahead of him. I'm hopeful that he finds and I'm sure he will. I think he'll be a starting slot receiver somewhere next year on a much more team-friendly deal than what the Jaguars originally signed him to, right? And I think he can have a lot of success in this league still. But he is primarily a slot-only receiver. He can win in a variety of ways from the slot. Two-way goes, slot fades, deep overs. He's really good at all these things. The one thing you could probably say doesn't give you much in the contested catch department, and the drop rate kind of not the best over the last couple years. Had some drops for the team. Had some drops in pivotal moments for the team as well, but mostly a very good football player for the Jaguars. Jags are moving on. So Christian Kirk, they're going to save $10.4 million in cap savings in 2025 by releasing Christian Kirk. $13.6 million dead cap hit, which really doesn't matter. The Jaguars are not worried about the cash side of things. They're not worried about paying money. Shad Khan doesn't care much about that. What he cares about is putting a winning product on the football field. And so the Jaguars are going to be, excited to have $10.4 million extra to play with in free agency. Heading into free agency, March 10th is the start of the legal tampering period. $38 million in expected cap space, just under $38 million in expected cap space per overthecap.com. You add in Christian Kirk's $10.4 million in cap savings, and you're sitting at over $48 million in cap space. I told y'all last week, I told you this week, I would be more surprised if both Christian Kirk and Evan Ingram were in Jacksonville I would be more surprised if either of them were in Jacksonville this year than both of them, right? I expected at least one of them to be cut. I would not be surprised if both of them are cut. I would not be surprised if both of these guys are no longer Jacksonville Jaguars. And that's not because they're not good players. I think Christian Kirk can go somewhere and be a very valuable contributor as a starting slot receiver. I think Evan Ingram can be a very valuable piece to a team as a move tight end, and I hope that he remains in Jacksonville. I think Evan Ingram is a great leader. He's been a really good football player. You can use him as a 3-level threat in the offense. I think he's been very reliable for the Jaguars. And again, there's just not a lot of tight ends that run quite as fast as Evan Ingram does. But Christian Kirk, no longer a Jacksonville Jaguar, at least that's what's coming down the pike for the Jags. And they're going to have a ton of cap space entering free agency. They're going to have a ton of cap space to work with. I think that they're definitely going to be heavily invested in trying to upgrade their secondary at cornerback and safety. I think you could also look potentially at the interior of the offensive line, at edge depth, maybe even the interior of the defensive line. We will see how the Jaguars end up playing this thing out in free agency, but they're going to have plenty of cap space to do pretty much anything they want. And they do have more cap flexibility. Evan Ingram, they could save $6 million basically by moving on from Evan Ingram. They could save $4.2 million by moving on from Josh Reynolds, which I expect to happen. Devin Duvernay, $2.7 million. Luke Fortner, $3.4 million. Buster Brown, $3.4 million. Dewey, $2.6. The list goes on. There's a lot of guys the Jaguars could potentially move on from and save some cap space, and this new regime can rebuild this roster in their image a little bit more. And so, what is Christian Kirk's legacy in Jacksonville? Really good player, signed in free agency. Unfortunately, injuries kind of really took away the last 2 years from Christian Kirk in a big way. And he didn't miss all of 2024 or all of 2023, but enough that you really only had one big-time year out of Christian Kirk in Jacksonville. And it was a magical year in 2022 down the stretch. Christian Kirk, Trevor Lawrence, Evan Ingram, all these guys balling out, putting up a ton of points on the board down the stretch for the Jags. But ultimately, Christian Kirk's tenure in Jacksonville is going to be kind of a flash-in-the-pan type of legacy, which stinks. But I hope that he's able to go somewhere and continue to have a big impact in this league. I really do. But the Jaguars now, you look at their receiver room, Gabe Davis is going to probably be there. I don't think that the Jaguars should see, Gabe Davis's cap hit and say just because we have to pay him that much means he's going to be a starting outside receiver for us. I don't think they should do that at all. I think that, is it a coincidence that you might see Chris Godwin hitting free agency? You might see, or you are seeing Devontae Adams, who we talked about earlier, hit free agency. I don't think it's necessarily a coincidence that Christian Kirk is going to no longer be a Jaguar when you've got guys like that out there on the market. Cooper Kupp available via trade potentially. There's a number of veteran names that the Jaguars could go target at the receiver position that have some inside-outside versatility. Chris Godwin, Devontae Adams, Cooper Kupp, all three of them, right? And you have specific relationships, working history between Cooper Kupp and Liam Cohen, James Gladstone, Liam Cohen, and Chris Godwin. So it's going to be fascinating to see how this plays out for the Jaguars and their receiver position, but make no mistake about it. Moving on from Christian Kirk is a sign that the Jaguars will be active, whether it be via free agency or the draft or both, in addressing their receiver room in 2025. Thank you all so much for tuning in. Really appreciate the support. If you enjoy the content, please like and subscribe. Y'all have a good one.